What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to The World According to Briggs. Today I thought we'd look at cities in the United States that have a surprisingly low cost of living. Most cities in the United States are higher than the national average when it comes to cost of living. It just costs more to live in the big city, that's all there is to it, or the medium city, whichever you're talking about. Cities are more expensive. We've talked about how people are on the move in the United States, looking for cheaper housing, jobs, and a lower cost of living. The pandemic has done a number on the economy and people are hurting right now. In the past, we've gone over small towns that are a good move if you're looking for a lower cost of living. That seems to be what a lot of people are doing these days because of the work from home options that are available to workers now. But there's still a lot of jobs in the city and a good percentage of the population prefer city life. So the question is, what cities have a relatively low cost of living? Some of these might surprise you. Before we get started, let's get this out of the way. Stop typing. These cities aren't the best the country has to offer. If they were, the cost of living would be much higher. So just so we all understand that. So when I say the name of a city, you don't have to leave a comment, got a low cost of living because the place sucks and it's got filled with crime. Well, chances are it does have some crime. It's got a low cost of living. It's not going to be perfect and cheap. That's all there is to it. Got it? Let's see what we found. Number 10, Mobile, Alabama. Mobile is a city of 200,000 on the Mobile Bay, not too far from the Gulf of Mexico. The entire metro area has a little over 400,000 residents. So it's a decent sized city with a lot of options for things to do and things like that. If you're looking for a lower cost of living and still be near some water, Mobile isn't the worst place to look at. The negatives for Mobile, they don't have a ton of good paying jobs. So if you're gonna move here and you have a job that you can work from home, this is a pretty good option. Crime is a bit high, but not terrible. And you're kind of close to Mississippi, so that's kind of a negative. But the cost of living is 7% lower than the national average. To get by here, just to get by, barely making it, you need at least $25,000. But if you want to live comfortably, you're looking at closer to $48,000. So if you make almost $50,000 a year, you could live pretty good here in Mobile, Alabama. Number 9, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Right outside the gates of Fort Bragg, you have Fayetteville and its 200,000 residents with about 500,000 living in the metro area. I haven't been here in like 15 years, but I liked it when I was there. I can tell you that I've seen far worse military towns. I'm sure lots changed in the time, but this video is not about my experience. But my experience was, there's good people that live here. These days they got a little too much crime, but it isn't terrible. The cost of living in Fayetteville is 9% lower than the national average, and you need about $23,000 to get by here, and to live comfortably probably closer to $47,000. Number 8, Cincinnati, Ohio. Cincinnati is in the southwest corner of the state of Ohio, across the Ohio River from Kentucky and just east of Indiana. The city has 200,000 residents, with the metro area having about 2 million. Most people don't know Cincinnati's that big or has that many people, but they do. They're a pretty big city. If you're from that area, sure, you know that, but if you're talking other parts of the country, nobody thinks it's that big. Of the 5 decent-sized cities in Ohio, I think I'd put Cincinnati right below Columbus if I were ranking them. Cleveland, Dayton, and Toledo sort of suck, but Cleveland's getting a little bit better, and Akron's sort of just okay. The biggest negatives, I would say, are crime, jobs, and the 7 bridges that connect Cincinnati with Kentucky. Yeah, those kind of suck. The cost of living in Cincinnati is 10% lower than the national average, and just to get by, you need about $23,000 a year. You're looking around $45,000 a year. Number 7, Rochester, New York. Rochester sits on the shores of Lake Ontario between Syracuse and Buffalo. The city has about 205,000 residents, with the entire metro area having just over 1 million people. I find it strange they have that many people because they've been losing residents every census since the 1950s. The main reason for the outward migration has historically been jobs and cold weather. Crime has been showing up as a factor in the last few decades when people are polled. The crime isn't crazy bad. It's only 65% higher than the national average. Sure, 65% is high, but keep in mind we have other cities in this country that are 200% higher than the national average. So it could be so much worse. Rochester isn't a terrible place. I've been there. But their cost of living is 12% lower than the national average, and if you want to just get by here, you're going to need a little over $22,000 a year, and if you want to live comfortably, you're looking somewhere around $45,000. Number 6, Shreveport, Louisiana. I've never been a fan of Shreveport. That's just me. I always seem to end up there on what feels like the hottest day of the year. Who doesn't enjoy sweating through their t-shirt while they walk 3 blocks? The city of Shreveport has about 200,000 residents, with about 400,000 living in the metro area. Downtown never seems busy. It's like it's not as busy as it should be for a city its size. It's like they built the place expecting more people to show up and they never did. They've only had 3 census where they've lost lost population, and 2020 being the biggest loss they've ever seen at 6.1% of the population have skipped town since the 2010 census. Crime is the city's biggest knock, being 123% higher than the national average, and that, plays a big part of why people are leaving this place. But in reality, that's just a few areas that are really bringing the city down. If they got those areas under control, it might have a major turnaround. I think it has the potential to. Anyway, the cost of living in Shreveport is 13% lower than the national average. If you want to just get by in Shreveport, you're going to need at least $23,000 a year in salary. And if you want to live comfortably, you're looking closer to $46,000. Number 5, Amarillo, Texas. Amarillo is a town like Shreveport in the way that it feels like they should have more people. It's weird. Amarillo is a nice looking city with a lot of good people. They don't seem to have a terrible amount of traffic either. That's always good. A lot of times people, wherever you're from, you always think you have the worst traffic. Because you get stuck in it and you think it's just horrible. And then you end up going someplace like San Francisco or Los Angeles and you're all, oh my God, this is horrible traffic. And then you go home and you feel better about the traffic you have. Well, Amarillo is one of those places. Locals might complain about it, but people from outside the area are not going to complain about it. The real knocks on this place are crime, and they're not doing great in jobs. They're okay, they just don't have many good paying jobs. One thing I always remember about Amarillo, Texas, is I actually watched a guy slip on a banana peel. Really, it was a whole banana, but the banana peel was there. At this point in my life, I really only thought cartoon characters in the Three Stooges slipped on banana peels. But no, this dude slipped on a banana right in front of us, and he did the splits. I'm fairly confident this was the first splits that man had ever done. He was a heavy dude. He actually cried, too, right in front of us. A bunch of people on the street seeing if he's okay. He was crying, almost like sobbing at one point. Amarillo, Texas has a cost of living that's 16% lower than the national average. And if you want to just get by here, you're going to need about close to $25,000. And if you want to live comfortably, about $49,000 will do the trick. Number 4, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I love Fort Wayne. Over the last few years, I've learned a lot about this city. Statistically, this place is great. Good housing costs, low cost of living, property crime is just above the national average, violent crime is well below the national average, they have tons of things to do. All of their stats are average or better. This is a great city for families too, and I don't understand why it has such a low cost of living. Normally there's something that stands out, like they've got horrible crime, or they've got horrendous weather, or there's nothing to do. Something sticks out. Not in Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne's a decent place to live, and their cost of living is 17% lower than the national average. You could live here and get by on $23,000 a year. If you want to live comfortably, you're looking at $47,000 a year. That's it. Fort Wayne has just over 250,000 people in the city, with 400,000 living in the metro area. If we were looking at places with low cost of living and then just ranking them by how nice they are or best place to live, Fort Wayne would be at the top of this list. But we're going by cost of living, so they're number 4. Number 3, Birmingham, Alabama. Unlike Fort Wayne, Birmingham isn't the best. They got a really low cost of living. They're just not the greatest place to live right now. Birmingham has just over 200,000 residents, with a little over 1 million living in the metro area, and I'm sure if you talk to most of them, they'd be willing to go if you'd rent them a U-Haul. But they have an incredibly low cost of living and a lot of history. I don't recommend moving to Birmingham to pretty much anyone, but if you want to save some money, this place has a surprisingly low cost of living. The cost of living in Birmingham is 19% lower than the national average. Yeah, it's pretty cheap to live in Birmingham. Number 2, Akron, Ohio. Now this one's got to be a first. Ohio shows up on a list that's mostly positive twice. What's the world coming to? That never happens. Akron is south of Cleveland and north of Canton, right there in the middle, and it is known as Rubber City because of its long history of rubber and tire manufacturing. The Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company are still there. Other companies like Firestone and things like that were there in the past. They have a long history, going all the way back to the 1800s of rubber manufacturing. They've even got a Firestone Park neighborhood and a Goodyear Heights neighborhood. You've heard of company towns? This is an industry town. Now, they've moved on to other things these days, but that's a lot of their history. Crime and unemployment, like almost all the cities on this list, are the real negatives that stand out in Akron. But they have good schools, low housing costs, and a cost of living that's 20% lower than the national average. Akron has had a shrinking population since the 1960s. Right now, they're sitting at about 200,000 residents. They peaked at almost 300,000 back in the 60s. Their metro area has about 700,000, so it's not a very small place. But if you're looking to save a dime on your cost of living, this is a good option. To get by here, you're only going to need about $19,000. Yeah, that's what they say, just to scrape by $19,000. And if you want to live comfortably, right around $39,000. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Also, ring that little bell notification so you know when we upload next. All right, on to number 1. And number 1. Brownsville, Texas. Like I said, the cost of living on some of these is going to be surprising, and this is one that should surprise you. Brownsville is just inland from South Padre Island on the Mexico border, near the Gulf of Mexico, in case you don't know where South Padre Island is. What I've always found strange about Brownsville is their downtown area looks like a frickin' third world country. Yeah, they've got some nice, old, beautiful buildings that probably if they got a little, care and maintenance, they'd have a nice downtown. They just don't. But if you go into the suburbs, it looks like middle America, and other neighborhoods look like really nice and expensive neighborhoods. Not many of them are, but it's just really weird. Normally the downtown, when you have a place that has a low cost of living, the downtown starts to look really good, and then the suburbs kind of follow. Now, this is going the other direction. I'm not oblivious to the fact that they got some pretty bad suburbs too, but a lot of them just look like middle America and nice homes. They got about 175,000 residents in the city of Brownsville and about 420,000 living in the metro area. Now, here's where it gets good. Their cost of living is actually 26% lower than the national average. Yeah, you only need about $18,000 a year to live here and get by, and if you want to live comfortably, you're looking at about $42,000. Brownsville is definitely a cheap place to live, and it's in Texas. Texas has a lot of positives going for it right now. Their politicians, their people are voting the right things in. It's a well-run state right now. And before you throw out some weird stat, yeah, they've got their problems just like every place else, but Texas is doing some good things. All right, that's today's list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Don't forget all the links below. Like I said, everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.